Cattle ranchers love animals and kill them. This is what we do. It's tradition to do that. It's culture. The loyalty to cattle ranching is so fierce. It's tradition, it's loyalty, it's heritage. I had gone vegan on a cattle ranch, and wives on cattle ranches don't go vegan if they want to stay married. He would have rather that I would have had an affair than go vegan. I said, you take those cows up the road one more time, I will follow you. I will go to that sale barn. I will buy them all back with your credit card. I'll bring them back home. And he was like, you stay out of my business. And I was like, this is no longer a business. These animals are my family.
What the hell is up, everybody? My name is Jamie Logan, and today I am here with Renee Sonnen and Jason Goldman, and we're going to be talking all about the new Rowdy Girl film. We're going to talk about how you took a cattle ranch, transitioned it into an animal sanctuary, which is an incredible story in itself, and we're going to talk all about the film and the power of media in getting compassionate messages across. So thank you so much for being here today.
So awesome.
Having us.
You know me. I love being with you.
Okay, so let's just start off. The two of us can't get our shit together. Renee comes to New York and she's like, please pick me up from the airport. I have 1 million bags. I'm like, sure, no problem. Only for you. I will go all the way out to Queens to get your ass. And of course I go to the wrong airport.
Yes, all for me.
So Renee's texting me. She's like, I'm at Terminal B. I'm like, I'm looking. There's no Terminal B. Can't figure it out. And I am on the other side of Queens at this point. So what do you do?
What do? I lug those bags with my body, pushing, pulling, asking for help. No. Well, actually, somebody did help, just for a second, not long.
Oh, my gosh. This was a show, man. So then, of course, she gets to my house sooner than I do because I'm all the way out in the middle of Jamaica, Queens. Yeah. So, long story short, you pull up to...
It's not a short story.
Yeah. You pull up to downtown Manhattan and you are just like, there's a lot happening.
There's so much happening. I mean, you have no idea how many bags, right? I mean, yeah. I have a bag for the documentary screening. I have a bag full of clothes for 9 days. I got to go to Jane's. I have a bag with all my, it's just crazy. All my fruit. My fruit is a whole nother story.
You have a whole luggage just for your fruit. So Texas woman takes on Lower Manhattan with her 1 million bags. And so she's like, what do I do? Where do I go? I'm like, well, there's a carnivore pizza shop right next door. I guess you could sit in.
So I did.
So she sits in this pizza place next to my house and...
without my luggage.
A special individual walks by. Who could this be?
I mean, that's what happens in New York. You just randomly see people you know.
No, you don't.
They just fall out of the sky.
I mean, the way you did this, okay, I happened to just be sitting right there by the opening, watching all these carnivore pizza buyers come by. And all of a sudden, here comes Jason and Adora walking by. I mean, like sprinting. And all of a sudden, it was like... Renee?
This is a New York moment, Renee.
It was a New York
moment. You see people you haven't seen in years.
Hold up. What was going through your head when you saw her sitting in a pizza shop?
Well, her luggage is about 4 foot high and pink. I'm a New Yorker for 20 years, so I'm always looking around. Maybe I'll see someone I know. Maybe I'll see a celebrity. Maybe I'll see someone I'm trying to avoid. And I'm always just looking around. And I saw this, pink suitcase on wheels, the size of a small child. Of course, that caught my eye, and lo and behold, crouching behind it in a pizza shop full of dead animal parts was Renee.
I was so gross.
Yeah. And you were waiting for me. So I was on the train and I just get a picture of you and Renee together. I'm like, see, you know what? This is the universe. This was meant to happen. Then we all ran into each other and we were like, oh my God, we're doing a podcast today. And here we are. So, wow. Gosh. And then Renee unpacks her suitcase and opens up her bag, and there's a cantaloupe in there. There's like 6 oranges. I'm waiting for a 45-pound jackfruit to jump out at me.
It was a honeydew melon, 4 grapefruits, and an orange.
We have fruit in New York City.
And a bag of grapes.
Right?
Yeah, I had to eat it when I had to be able to eat it when I wanted to eat it.
This is the city that never sleeps.
I couldn't wait.
Yeah.
I noticed.
So, Texas Woman takes on New York. What are you guys doing here in town today and this week?
Well, I'm journeying back home to my home turf of New York City because Rowdy Girl is making its New York City premiere after several awesome festivals last year. We're finally hitting mainstream art house independent movie theaters throughout the country. And New York is a wonderful place to kick that off for many reasons. Long history of independent film, documentaries. Wow. So we are here to kick off that launch in person and welcome everyone to the beginning of the Rowdy Girl screening tour.
This is so exciting, Renee. Your story is so unbelievably moving, powerful, and unique. And for those people that don't know you and what you have accomplished, they should watch the film, number one. But why don't you just give us a background, a general background of who you are and what Rowdy Girl is?
Well, I am a Texas cattle rancher's wife that became a cattle rancher just by association. Okay, my husband, Tommy Sonnen, is a multi-generational cattle rancher in Texas, and I married him for the second time. I married him once, and then that didn't work. That didn't take. So the second time I married him, it took. But unfortunately, he wanted me to move to the country. I wanted him to stay in the city. And it was kind of like that Green Acres. Green Acres is the place for me. Yeah, that one. Anyway, I did not want to go to the country. And he was like, come on, I'm not going to the city. And so it was this tug of war. It was just like this thing, And finally, I relented and moved to the country. Oh, I did not like the mud. I did not like the dirt. I did not like the rocks. I did not like watching all the babies go to the cell barn.
The cows.
Yeah, the cows. I was not a vegan. I was a yogini for many years. I have been for a long time, always practicing, ahimsa, nonviolence, and eating animals. And who knew? Who knew ahimsa, nonviolence meant not eating animals? Anyway, so after a few years of living with Tommy, I kept trying to reconcile how we were doing this. I kept trying to reconcile why we didn't eat our own animals. And Tommy kept telling me stuff like, well, Renee, I can't eat animals. I know. And so I was like looking at him out of the one side of my brain and my eyes and going, so you can eat their cousin, you can eat their grandma, but you can't eat the ones you know. None of it made sense to me. I'm not a vegan. I'm just starting to have like these weird looks about me. And so Tommy wanted me to get more involved in cattle ranching. So he comes home one day and says, Renee, there's a couple of babies up the road that need a mama, baby calves. I said, really? Appealing to my motherly heartstrings since I had no children of my own and always wanted them. And I went to see these babies, and one of them was Rowdy Girl. And a little bouncing, beautiful, little black baby Angus Brangus with a little white heart on her head. And I immediately fell in love. She was such a rowdy girl. That was her name. I said, well, look at you. Aren't you a little rowdy girl? And that became the legendary Rowdy Girl. People think I'm Rowdy Girl. It's just good. I don't know where she starts, where I end. We're one. I speak for her. She definitely speaks for me. And you should interview her one day.
I will.
Anyway, long story short, it is a very long story. And, you got to come see the documentary. But I couldn't keep doing what I was doing. And I kept challenging Tommy because I kept seeing the rest of the cows through Rowdy Girl. I would bottle feed Rowdy Girl, and I just had more love in my heart for that baby calf than I ever knew I could have for an animal I ate. See, I started loving this baby calf, and I was eating cheeseburgers and hamburgers made of cow flesh, and I started really short-circuiting. I was living in a world where I would feed Rowdy Girl. I'd have to stop feeding her, go home, and be a good cattle rancher's wife, because I would go home and tell Tommy, gosh, I just see a whole new world when I'm feeding Rowdy Girl. I see all the cows. I see who they are. And, I started naming them one by one. And, of course, Tommy was like, you got to stop naming them cows. Don't name those cows, Renee. And I was like, why? And he said, because we can't, kill animals we know. And I was like, it dawned on me that Rowdy Girl was one of those that could be killed. I was like, oh, you will not. I'm not vegan. I said, you're not going to kill Rowdy Girl one day. I mean, I did tell him that one time. Different little things always come out in interviews. It's so interesting. I've never told anybody this. But I told Tommy one day, I said, you're not going to kill Rowdy Girl or her daughter, Houdini, which later on that came to be. But anyway, he was like, Renee, this is what we do. We're cattle ranchers. We feed the world. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's what we do. That's what we're told. And so this went back and forth and back and forth. Rowdy Girl grew up, and I became more and more resistant against what we were doing because he'd have to take the babies to the cell barn. And when the babies went to the cell barn, the mamas would cry for days. They would just cry and cry and cry for days. And I would have such a emotional reaction. Yeah. I would cry myself. And I'd go outside, and I'm not a vegan. I'm just having feelings for these cows that just lost all their babies. So Tommy starts hiding it from me, he thinks. So, he would do it when I wasn't home, but I would come home. I could tell there was animals missing out in the pasture, and I would just break down. And, year by year, the breakdowns started getting more severe. I started having more reactions. I started watching slaughterhouse videos. I wanted to understand what we were doing. In fact, he told me one day, he said, Renee, you've got to quit watching all that PETA propaganda. And I was like, PETA propaganda? Really? He said, yeah, that's all PETA propaganda. And I was like, okay. And so I began to research more PETA propaganda, slaughter. And I was like, oh, no. This is not PETA. This is not propaganda. And I started seeing the real propaganda was animal ag. That's the real propaganda. And so, one day I stumbled on the Melanie Joy dissertation on carnism, and they're sitting around having beef stew. Everybody's enjoying beef stew, and somebody says, what is the recipe for that beef stew? It's so good. And the lady of the house says, well, you start off with a pound of very young golden retriever. And that is when, this was on October 31st, 2014. And that is the moment something happened in me. I was like, oh my God, I could be eating dog meat, puppy dogs. I could be eating little chopped up puppy dogs and not even know it. I could be eating my grandmother's rear end chopped up and not know it. I mean, really, when you look at a bowl of stew meat, what's in there? Chopped up dead animals, okay? And all at once, I'm not a vegan, I saw that. Well, I'm crying. This was going on for months. I would be crying watching all this PETA propaganda. And Tommy was like, Renee, you got to stop watching that stuff. We got to go to my mother's house. We got a party to go to, all the kids, the costumes, the block party for all that, And so I put my makeup on and go, and we get there, and, I'm looking all right until I walk in, and my mother-in-law walks out with a pot of beef stew. I mean, it was as if I was in the script. It was like all at once I was in the script of Melanie Joy's dissertation on carnism. And you don't make this up. My mother was in slow motion. Why, Renee, would you like some beef stew? And I'm like, I can't eat that. I mean, I was just like, no. And she was like, why? Why? I said, because it's got floating dead, hacked up animal bodies in it, and I can't eat it. The whole room was full of noise and laughter and kids, and all of a sudden, on a dime, silence. And they're all looking at me like, what did you say? And I said, it's got floating dead, hacked up animal bodies in it, and I can't eat it. I'm done. And my mother-in-law was like, oh, and my sister-in-law was like, and my husband was like, Renee. And the little kids were like, she said, well, Renee, you can pick it out. And I was like, there ain't no more picking it out for me. I am done. I slid down that rabbit hole, y'all. I promise you, there is a vegan rabbit hole. And once you slip down it, you will not come back. You will not ever. I don't care what. Well, I was gone. I started taking all the anything remotely resembling meat or excretions of animals, all that out of my house. I told Tommy, we're going to have funerals for my leather boots. We're going to have, we're getting rid of all these heads. We had a whole hallway called the Horny Hall. It was full of horns. I mean, not only a cattle rancher, but big time hunter. My husband was,
Wow.
So, I mean, it was just unbelievable. So I'm still married to Tommy. He's still a cattle rancher. And unbeknownst to me, I had gone vegan on a cattle ranch. And, it was kind of like not common. Wives on cattle ranches don't go vegan if they want to stay married.
Wow. And this is also the second time you had married him, so you're like, I don't know.
He would have rather that I would have had an affair than go vegan. I mean, the loyalty to cattle ranching is so fierce. It's tradition, it's loyalty, it's heritage, your entire persona especially a Texas cattle rancher. Come on, I mean,
look at the boots you got on. They're vegan now, but damn.
Cat Mendenhall vegan leather.
Doesn't get any more cattle rancher Texas vibes than that.
I know, right?
I know.
And so anyway, long story short, it is I ended up really having a big difficulty. Tommy and I almost got divorced because you know what he said? I was cock blocking him.
To what? Cattle ranching?
I was doing nothing with that. I was like, I was like, you just will not. I said, you take those cows up the road one more time, I will follow you. I will go to that sale barn. I will buy them all back with your credit card. I'll bring them back home. And he was like, threw his hat down in the pasture. He said, you stay out of my business. And I was like, and he was like, Renee, I mean it. You stay out of my business. I said, this is no longer a business. And I was serious. I put my hands on my hip. I'll never forget. This is no longer a business. These animals are my family. They are my friends. You will not take them to the sale barn. It is over. This is no longer a cattle ranch. Oh, let me tell you, it was like that. If you've ever seen War of the Roses, it was like that at my home. I mean, we were fighting tooth and nail. It was so bad that I would go out and stay with the cows all day long. I would pack my vegan lunch. I would get me a blanket, my guitar. I'd go out there with those cows, and when they laid down, I laid down. When they walked, I walked. I learned more about being a cow, and I learned through them that I'd much rather be with them than my husband at the time.
Wow.
I stayed there with them all day. I didn't want to go home. We were like this. And we were close to divorcing, and I knew that if I left him, he'd kill the cows. And he knew that if he left me, I'd take over. We were at a Texas standoff. And so I just, I started like getting online, looking for I found a vegan friend online. Her name is Jeannie. And she's the one that told me all the documentaries, to watch and to tell Tommy to watch. And to his credit, he started watching them. He started watching them, and one thing after the other started happening, and I started a vegan journal of a rancher's wife. That's what it was called. And I started raising money online to buy my husband's cows because, we talked about it and we made a deal. He never thought I'd raise the money. But I said to him one time, wasn't too long after I went vegan, I said, Tommy, why don't you let me buy your cows? He said, you want to buy my cows? I said, yeah. I said, I want to buy your cows and start a sanctuary. He said, you've lost it. I said, yeah, well, what if I can? Can I buy your cows? How much? And he said, oh, yeah, all right.
Friends
I'll
and
go
family
along.
discount,
Yeah,
maybe.
exactly.
Okay.
That's what it was. And so he said, all right, I could get, 40-something thousand or something for him at the sale barn. I'll give them to you for 30.
Okay.
Exactly. And I said, all right, and will you let me lease the land for $1 a year? He said, sure. I said, how about 2 years? He said, sure. I was having to cover all my bases,
Mm-hmm.
And so I raised the money in less than 4 months and bought his cows.
Wow.
And every step of the way, he became more and more convinced. And as a result, a lot happened. But as a result, I started the first ever beef cattle ranch conversion and in the state of Texas into a sanctuary. I mean,
Wow.
I didn't know I was doing anything special. I just knew that my heart was breaking to the point to where I couldn't keep doing what we were doing.
Wow. See, y'all, this is exactly what I was talking about. When I said incredible, moving, unique, I was not kidding. And Jason, you saw this story and you decided to start documenting it. So why don't you take us back to the very beginning of Rowdy Girl, the documentary, and how you got involved with Renee.
I had just come off a long short film, as I say, 40-minute short film, after doing years and years of advertising brand commercial work. And it reminded me of some of the real reasons I got into filmmaking, which are tell people stories, create social change, have impact perspective. And that was about 2 years after I'd gone vegan. And I had not really embraced any of my stronger ethical morals within my parallel passion for filmmaking. And I thought, well, why don't I do that? It seemed really obvious. I'm probably like a lot of people when they go vegan right off the bat, they are suddenly energized and excited and want to share this. I mean, there's some really bad stereotypes, but there are some really good stereotypes. And I wanted to lean into the good stereotypes. And by then, I had gone vegan. And after I went vegan, then I started watching some of the other documentaries and seeing what was out there. How could I join this conversation of other like-minded filmmakers who either were filmmakers and wanted to do something about animal rights or were animal rights activists and wanted to make films. So I wanted to see where they fit in and where my interests fit in and how that conversation would occur. And I also wanted to see what other topics were interesting to me, interesting to other people, where I could really dig into something engaging. And I couldn't really find anything in depth about sanctuaries. I'd been to Woodstock Sanctuary in upstate New York. And I wanted to know maybe there's a way to do a very intimate portrayal of someone who starts a sanctuary, because I also felt that the process of creating internal change in people might be accelerated or might be aided by seeing someone else also go through that transformation. And I thought, well, maybe there's a story with a sanctuary founder, creator. So after some failed attempts to do some cold outreach to some sanctuaries and social media, I connected with someone who said, well, why don't you speak to Renee in Texas? Have you heard of Rowdy Girl Sanctuary? I said, no, sure. Texas is great. That sounds great. So we ended up getting on the phone, and I watched a little bit of what was in CBS Evening News and Houston Chronicle postings about Renee, but I really got to understand more about the idea that she had gone through that transformation on her own. I think that was one of the first things that attracted me to her story, how unique that was. Mm-hmm. If she can go through this and I can go through this in my own way and we each ended the same results, well, maybe there's a way that her story can help other people see that. And I can bring a different perspective to telling that story. So that immediately triggered my interest. And then further, when she was kind of kicking off RAP, the Animal Advocacy Program. So not only was she creating a sanctuary, rescuing animals, but she was turning that into an active part of her animal advocacy.
Helping other ranchers transition to plant-based?
Absolutely. So it wasn't as passive. And I'm not saying that sanctuaries are passive, but certainly they can represent or be a symbol of something, and people go to that. But Renee was taking all of her experience and then putting that into a forward momentum and passing it on to people and recognizing that her transformation is something that other people can learn from in a very practical way. especially in a way that she said that farmers and ranchers don't like to talk about. So she was kind of this, I think back to deprogrammers from cults are oftentimes people who have already exited the cult, or they know how to talk to people who are still invested in this mindset and break them free of that. There was something kind of wrapped up into this. So it all sounded really intriguing to me. And I guess it was a month later in November I guess it was a year later, because we started shooting in January 2020. And I think November of 2019 is when I first went down. I spent a weekend. I just took still photos, hung out with Tommy when he was riding the tractor, sat in on some of Renee's meetings at which she would let me eavesdrop. And then I cooked them as much food as I could.
He cooked a lot.
I love cooking. And, New Yorkers were kind of spoiled for delivery, takeout. But I realized that an hour south of Austin, you got to do a lot of cooking yourself. And I thought that if the least they could do is let this stranger into their home and take photos of them and ask them questions, the least I could do is cook them some delicious vegan homemade food. So that opportunity, being with them for 72 hours straight, we understood each other a lot more. And Renee and Tommy were gracious enough to let me come back a couple months later and start filming.
Wow.
And you never know how it's going to go. I often say, you have one idea for a film, you shoot a second idea, and then you edit a third idea. And that was part of this journey, but we were off to it.
Wow. And what I love so much about the film is that it's so raw, it's so authentic. You fall in love with Renee as she's just being herself. She's a rowdy girl. And it's just, you really capture that. It's not like you were like, okay, Renee, stand here and pet the cow. And what you see in the film is their life living at this sanctuary. And this is kind of like the aftermath of you transitioned, and now you're seeing the life that you're living there. So can you talk about maybe some of the challenges that you faced while on set, while you were filming, and also the timing of it? Because sometimes when you're shooting documentaries, it's like, oh, you're saying you went back a few months later, and there's so many things that could happen.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Part of the same theory of the philosophy of this style of filmmaking is that I was hesitant to people immediately torpedo the film, saying it was too heavy-handed. Renee's talking down to you. I feel like I'm being lectured to. And I felt like one of the fastest ways to avoid that is just let the action unfold. And that way, in Renee's natural state of being, she's not telling the animals or her husband or anybody who walks up how to live their lives. She's welcomed them into this space that she's created. And it's a sanctuary, literally, figuratively. You go to this space, this place, and you feel the relief that nothing bad is going to happen here. This is a welcome space for everybody. So I wanted people to have that transitional feeling, right? I think films are effective in putting you in different places. And I wanted this to be that. Again, being a New Yorker, going to Texas, I wanted everybody like me who had similar experiences to me, different from Renee, to feel like they knew what it was like for me to be there. Mm-hmm. And the films I like to make, I want you as an audience member to appreciate my experience without seeing me in the film. So all those intimate moments, all that raw observational, that was just me living in Renee's space and capturing it. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing about this film is like, Renee didn't have to do anything. I was like, just be yourself. And I didn't have to do anything. I was just like, roll the camera. And I think that's kind of the magic of sometimes filmmaking, is that no one's really trying to do anything. You're just being yourself, and you're going with your instincts, and you're I wouldn't say you're trying to be authentic. You just are authentic.
Right. What is a day in the life of Renee King Sonnen at Rowdy Girl Sanctuary?
She gets up early.
That I know.
She gets up early.
On that note, I would just like to say we shared a room at the Ava Summit, and she's staying with me right now, and it'll be like 4:30 in the morning, and I just hear this like bottle shaking. She's making her smoothie thing in the morning, and I'm like,
Zeal. I was gonna
your
say, it's
zeal. And I'm like, hello. It's like pitch black, and I'm like, what's going on? She's like, hey, and I was like, what time is it? She's like, oh, it's just 4:30 a.m. I'm like, girl, get your ass back in bed. I said, I'm going back to sleep. So yeah, she gets up early.
Yes.
Yeah.
She gets up with the crows. Yeah, we would try and get in sync with her. We weren't getting up at 4:30, but we would make family coffee together. And, she has a full day. So sometimes it's connecting with her staff, the animal caretakers, checking in on all the communication, social media, emails, meetings. She has a very full day, even though she is somewhat isolated in the sanctuary in the middle of cattle country. There's not a lot of leisure time. So the beauty of it, and also the nature of having so many animals and the inherent activity to take care of them and problems and solutions, all these things meant that every time we were there, something would inevitably happen. We weren't starved for action, so to speak.
That's true.
There's a scene when Rowdy is getting a vet visit, and we just happened to be there that week. And the vet visit needed to happen, and Renee happened to schedule it, and we happened to be there. That was like the week we were coming down, So a lot of it is simply being there. And in another version of this film, maybe we would have spent every single day there for a year or two. That would have been a very different film. I don't know if Renee would have survived that. But, the whole intent was we were minimal. It was normally 2, at most there's 3 of us, really fly on the wall, traditional observational filmmaking. And there's just always something going on.
What was your experience like during the filming, and then also your reaction after you saw it for the first time?
I immediately felt at home when he started filming, because he came to our home and spent the time with us, and and I could tell by the way he cooked in the kitchen the kind of man he was. He just was really caring, nurturing, inquisitive, and also just really gentle in his manners. He was just really wanting to get to know us, and wasn't pushy at all. And so when he started filming, I already felt like he was part of our little rowdy herd, He was part of the little family, he just felt like he belonged. So when he started filming, I hardly even knew he was there most of the time, because he never said, Renee, we want to stage you doing blah, blah, blah. It was always just, what do you got going on today? What's happening today? Well, he even caught us getting a surrendered calf from a cattle rancher. Sonny's in the documentary, a full-on chiseled face, bona fide Texas cattle rancher that is a friend of ours, donates to Rowdy Girl. And, Buster is at our sanctuary and alive because of the tender-hearted, nature of this man that farms cattle.
Wow.
Yeah, we used to do it. I always say, cattle ranchers love animals and kill them. This is what we do. This is the way we're taught. It's tradition to do that. It's culture. And we are taught. It's almost as if we are programmed in the same breath to love and kill. It's like loving and killing is 2 sides of the same coin.
Wow.
It's like, this is what I know now, and I think we're so much better than that. And what Jason did is he allowed me to just be myself. Being in a studio like this is sometimes a little intimidating, although it's hard to intimidate me, but
you're just talking to me.
But in a studio with lights and all the stuff. But at home with Jason, it was just like, whatever you're doing, just do it. And it gave me an opportunity to just really be myself. And I knew that it was being filmed, but I didn't know I was being filmed. It's weird. Jason's style is not intimidating at all. He just gives you an opportunity to really be yourself. And the magic happens.
What was your reaction to seeing it for the first time?
Yeah, we did.
What can people expect from it to see?
We did so I screened a rough cut with them, which every documentary filmmaker will tell you no.
Right. Because they'll give you a million notes and things.
Like the nightmare, my nightmare, is Renee not liking the film. Yeah. Because I don't even want to talk about what that would mean. So, but I also knew that they may not totally understand what I was going for. You got to be a real film nerd, I think, to really speak that kind of language. And they trusted me, clearly, but maybe they didn't totally. I mean, it's hard to picture yourself in a film. Like, what would that look like? Especially different from all the things she'd used to see, which are more formal sit-down interviews, right? Or B-roll of her, with Rowdy.
Yeah, I mean, he caught me with robe on, my robe on, playing with my dolls.
It's very different.
Oh.
Yeah, that's not in the film, though.
That's not in the film, but, it'll be an outcut.
Yeah, there'll be some lead scenes. But, as she was saying, like, the more you film, the less she's mindful of it. So if you shoot for 3 hours and 3.5 hours are not going to make the film, but 30 minutes is great, or even a minute is great. That's really how you have to sift through this, like you're gold digging a bit, He's got tons of footage. Yeah. And the first time I saw, whenever we saw it the first time, I was like, wow. Just wow. And I was just wowed. I don't know what else to say. I was just, because I was there. I was living Rowdy Girl Sanctuary through your eyes. And it'll make me cry if I think about it, because I remember just feeling, wow, is this how people see us? It was surreal.
How do people see you?
Just loving the animals, being their family. It was obvious that everybody that we interacted with, through Jason's eyes, there was a real rapport being built with the people that was involved. Nobody was, called in to be there on purpose. It was people that just showed up, whether it be to surrender Lulu or surrender Buster, or, Cindy and Richard Traylor that were there. It was just a unfolding of moments that we were living through his eyes. And I got to really see us, Tommy, me, the people, the animals. I mean, the way he captures the animals is just like I see them. You get to actually see them. You get to know that they matter. You get to experience not just that they're there, but that they really matter, that they're a part of the fabric of our lives. And the second time I saw it, I was just like, whoa. Because we got, we just happened to get, I really, the Rancher Advocacy Program, it's been a real tough thing for me. Because when I transitioned Rowdy Girl Sanctuary, where I transitioned the Sonnen Ranch to Rowdy Girl Sanctuary, I had such a cathartic metamorphosis as a cattle rancher's wife. I happened to have a lot of skills and talent that, I could take that experience and I turned it into a nonprofit, and I had the wherewithal, because I have a lot of strengths that way, to fundraise and gather people around me to make it work. Cattle ranchers, by and large, don't have that. They don't know what to do. And so what happened is cattle ranchers and their wives and families began to contact me, because our story was it was like wildfire. It went on CBS Evening News. I'll never forget the moment Steve Hartman called me from New York. Steve Hartman on the road. The Houston Chronicle had done a big story. And we were like on the front page of the section in the middle. It was huge. And it got picked up all over the United States. And this is new. This is early on. And Steve Hartman, New York, called and wanted to know all about what we were doing. And he said, well, we're coming. We're coming to Texas. I said, really? When? He said, in a couple of days. I said, a couple of days? Well, he was at Rowdy Girl in a couple of days filming. And next thing you know, we are on Nightline or something like that. I mean, some big news story, and it's gone everywhere. It blew up our website. I mean, we did not have the capacity for that kind of viewership. It was seen over 1 million times. It was crazy. And so I was like, and I remember Steve Hartman telling me, Renee, what are you going to do next? I mean, how's it going to get any bigger than this? Well, it has.
Yeah.
It's just like Rowdy Girl's got a message. Rowdy Girl herself has a message. For people to think that animals are voiceless is not the case for me. Mm-hmm. I used to say, and you'll hear me say it sometimes, I'm the voice for the voiceless. But what I've learned to say is I am the voice for them that you can't hear. You can't hear them. But people, I'm here to tell you that people like me do. I do hear them. And I will do everything I can in my power to make sure that I am speaking their language through my voice that you can hear. They want out of this,
Well, the Rowdy Girl doc has gone around to many film festivals. The Hamptons Film Festival.
Hot dogs.
Huh?
Hot dogs.
Hot dogs. I mean, this story, what you're doing is you're making veganism and our message of kindness to animals mainstream. And that kind of ties all back to what you were saying in the beginning of this podcast, where you said, I wanted to tell stories to create impact and social change. And what I love so much about this documentary is that it's not attacking people and telling people you need to go vegan and you need to change, because some people are hesitant and resistant to hearing that. But what it's doing is it's drawing people in, inviting them in, and letting a story just play out and a day in the life just play out. And so what is next for this film, and what is next with Rowdy Girl and everything you have going on? So maybe you'll start with what's next with the doc.
Absolutely. So we're taking a very thoughtful approach in how the release strategy goes. A little more traditional, I would say, than what people can do nowadays. But we're doing a theatrical run, so we're targeting specific cities and treating the film almost like a band on tour. So it'll come to your town for maybe a week, maybe 1 or 2 nights, but hitting different cities and different art house independent theaters throughout the country. So coming up after this, it will be in LA for 8 days. We have dates in Sedona, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Albuquerque, New Mexico. We just got a date in San Francisco in mid-June, and it's just going to kind of roll out over the course of the rest of the year. Kind of in the wake, I would say, of the theatrical run, we will then kind of revisit some of those marketplaces, either that had a great turnout or maybe didn't get the opportunity to screen the film, and connect with some of the local organizations who might want to host a community screening or a grassroots event. And that way we bring the film back in a kind of a different capacity. Maybe it's a little more active. Maybe we can tie in some more activities or things out in the field to the event to not only have a screening, but also make it an activation moment for people. And then kind of in the long term, maybe once all those screenings die down, we'll start to ramp up more of a digital opportunity. The film is also available for university libraries. So students out there, if you're dying to see it, you can request it for your library. The educational distributor is on the website for the film, rowdygirlfilm.com, so you can learn who to request from and how to engage your librarian about it to get a copy. That might put it on your university streaming platform or Canopy, which is a fantastic library-based streaming platform. And then we'll probably offer it for rental VOD and then in the future free at some point when the kind of the lifespan has kind of come to an end that way.
Amazing. That's so exciting. And you, this is one aspect of things that you have going on. I don't know how much you want to share, but your story is just growing. Rowdy Girl's growing, and I want the world to really know about you, and just like we didn't even get into the history of you as a person and just everything you've gone through, but hopefully people will be able to find out about that one day. So what's next for you?
Yes, they will, because the book, Anyway, I wrote this. I've been writing this book for several years and finally finished it about a year ago. And, it's, I was going to self-publish, and I was encouraged actually by Jane Velez Mitchell to seek a publisher. And I this is a new world for me, but I wrote the book. Kip Anderson is the one that said, Renee, I want you to start at the beginning. I want you to write a book. Because this is what he said to me years ago. He's on our board and he's a good friend, but he said years ago, he said, Renee, one of these days, I want to produce and direct your life story, your film, a film. Mm-hmm. And I was like, really? He said, yeah, one of these days. This was years ago. He said, but first you got to write the book. And I was like, okay, sure. I've written tons of songs, but never a book. And so I said, where do you want me to start? He said, start at the beginning. And I said, okay, the beginning of my life or the sanctuary? He said, your life. Mm. So my life story starts in a graveyard. So you'll have to get the book. But my book tells the whole story. Because he said, Renee, what kind of person goes against not only a Texas cattle ranch husband, what kind of woman flies in the face of cattle ranching with her husband and the whole cattle ranching industry? Who does that? Who just says out loud, I want to end animal agriculture, as a former cattle rancher? Who does that? That's who I want to know. So that's what the book's about. Who does that?
You do that, and everybody's going to have to read it to find out.
Yeah.
So exciting. I am just honored to have you both here with me and people that are changing the world in so many different ways. I always like to, tell my audience, whether you have a background in performing arts, if you have a background in film, use those skills to advocate for the greater good, to advocate for many social causes. And the animals is something that's so important because there's so few people doing it. And, I find it so inspiring that even despite, the close people around you, the cattle ranchers around you, the family around you, you've stood your ground and you've made a difference in so many people's lives. And hopefully after people watch the film, they will change their lifestyle in ways to help animals as well. So I just want to open it up. Are there any other details or final things that you wanted to share, whether it's where people can contact you, where people can watch the film?
You can certainly follow either Renee or the film on social media, Rowdy Girl Film and Rowdy Girl Sanctuary, of course. We do a lot of cross-promotion naturally. So if you're following one of us, you'll certainly learn about upcoming screenings. And I would encourage people to go to theaters, see it, not just this film, but any film. Jamie, you've seen it. You know that one thing that people remark or love is that there's no music. There's no soundtrack or score. Meaning your audio experience is simply the animals, the sanctuary, the people there. And I think, and I'm certainly a cinema purist, call me a snob if you will, I accept it, but being in a dark room with a bunch of people all focusing specifically on this one experience and all having an emotional experience together is way more enriching than being on your couch with a bowl of chips, half on your phone, half on something else, seeing what's next. And I would encourage people to seek it out if it's playing near them and take the opportunity to experience it in a theater.
Definitely. It's worth the watch.
One of the great things I want all of you out there to know is a lot of the documentaries, I've watched them all, and they all have their purpose. But Rowdy Girl, you can see it in a school. It is the kind of documentary, and I think that's why it was recently written up in Vogue, like Vogue magazine. It was like 43 million subscribers. I was just shocked. And the reason why is because it's the kind of film that anybody can watch. And you can have an experience that you don't even know you're having when you watch this film. Mm-hmm. You will automatically be drawn into the lives of the animals, and Tommy and I, and those that are there surrendering animals, because people are surrendering animals because they don't want them to go to slaughter. I mean, our mission at Rowdy Girl Sanctuary is we only rescue animals bound for slaughter or that are going to be euthanized, like because, for whatever reason. So any animal that is seen in the film was going to be killed if it didn't come there. So you're getting the experience of that interaction. It's very rich, those interactions, and the animals that are still there and saved as a result of that. So that's the beauty of this film, is that anybody can see it. You don't have to worry about slaughterhouse footage. You don't have to worry about anything going to harm the senses at all. You're going to leave enriched and maybe even changed.
You're going to feel, you'll leave feeling good.
You leave feeling good.
You don't feel guilty or bad. And I want people to be more self-aware, certainly about animals, but being self-aware about your relationship with animals changes all of your self-awareness. This is part of the film, but I think it's important that you reconfigure your brain to think about, all right, what are my environmental impacts? Well, how do I talk to my neighbor? Everything kind of starts bubbling up and turning over once you have one of these major social unrests in how you perceive yourself and relationship with other living beings on this planet. And again, it's not overt. It's just part of the fabric of the film.
I remember telling Sonny, that cattle rancher, very Christian, man, upstanding man, he was like, Renee, I respect what you do. I really respect what you do, but I'm a cattle rancher, and, Jesus said, it's okay. This is what we do. I mean, we're just doing what we need to do to feed humanity. And I said to him, there's a door that you dare not go through, because if you do, you'll find that all of those animals are just like us. And the way he captured that moment, it's penetrating. I mean, I saw a meme out about it one day. I mean, there was a meme, of that quote, and I was like, wow. Yeah, and there's a door you dare not go through, because if you do, you'll go down that rabbit hole and you will not come back.
Absolutely. Going vegan was just simply for me aligning my morals with my actions. And my one regret is that I didn't do it sooner. And going vegan, I've been able to connect with amazing people like you that are doing such great work. And we're only going to grow and get stronger, because I do truly think that humanity at our core, we are kind, we are loving, we want peace. We're just socially conditioned. And if you could change, anybody can. I mean, period.
That's it.
Well said.
Yeah. So thank you for telling this story. Thank you for all you do. Guys, you should definitely go follow Rowdy Girl on Instagram. Become a member. I'm a member.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You're a member.
I am a member.
I'm a member.
Yeah.
I even donate every month.
Yes. And what I love so much about sanctuaries is you are allowing animals to tell their stories and to advocate for themselves, because just them being alive and living and showing people how intelligent they are, how sweet and loving and innocent they are, people can go there and realize, maybe I should leave these animals off my plate. So I am a huge fan and supporter of sanctuaries and funding sanctuaries. And so thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Jamie.
Of course. Well, you guys know where to find me. I'm at It's Jamie's Corner. And be sure to look for a screening of Rowdy Girl in a city near you. All right. Without further ado, guys, see you next time. Bye.
Bye.